Well, there's something in the business called a show open, but not having much luck with that here today. Welcome in. This is Citadel Gray Line, John Rawl, and we're going to have a great show, even though we've got some sad news in the Citadel family as the 17th president of the college has passed away, Bud Watts. We'll give you all that we know about that on this program today. We also have coming up on today's Citadel Gray Line, Andrew Miller with the latest on what's going on at the Military College of South Carolina in terms of its sports program. So let's go to Andrew and kill my name there. Andrew, how you doing, sir?
Doing well, John. Hope you're doing well as well.
I'm doing fine. Thank you.
I want to say about Bud Watts. He was the president when I was covering the team back in the 90s. And he is related somehow to somebody on my wife's side of the family. And I think that my wife's mother's cousin is like brothers with him or something like that. But he actually knew my mother-in-law. And so he was always very nice to me and always very nice to my wife. And he would always bring that up. I don't know if he grew up in Newberry, but he knew a lot of the Newberry people that my wife knew. So my condolences to the Watts family and to the Citadel community. I liked General Watts a ton. He was always very gracious and very nice to me and always would answer my questions. So he will be missed along with Stanley Myers. I think Maurice Drayton called them two major oak trees in the Citadel family, and they will be missed for sure.
For $1 million, Thomas Scruggs, Citadel class of 1995. Can you tell me what General Watts's first name was?
That would be Claudius.
That's right. Claudius Bud Watts from the class of 1958. We lost him as it was announced Monday. I think he passed away Sunday. A guy who went on to be a Vietnam veteran, amassed over 7,000 flight hours as a command pilot in the U.S. Air Force, retired as a lieutenant general, and in the fall of 1989, General Watts was called to be the Citadel's 17th president. Your thoughts of General Watts as a cadet during his time there?
Well, of course, he was the president there at the Citadel my whole 4 years. I believe yours as well. Maybe Grimsley overlapped with you, John. My favorite my favorite Watts story would be from the food fight, the famous food fight of 1993. I think we did about $10,000 worth of damage to the mess hall. And our next meeting with him, he basically called us a bunch of animals. So yeah, that's my favorite Watts memory.
Well, what a memory! Again, General Bud Watts dying again at the I guess he would have been somewhere in his mid to late 80s, his age, but a guy who, let's be honest with you, he was hired back at that time period of the late 1980s to come in and help fix the Citadel because the Citadel had enormous financial problems, and that's the one thing that he was excellent at in the Air Force, and he came on and really helped restore financial stability to the college. In fact, that's part of the reason you have Watts Barracks on the campus now, is he helped find a way to get money for the rebuilding of the barracks, for example, and just in a time period just before the arrival of women, Bud Watts. And there had also been a lot of negative stories. The Neesmith incident of the 1980s had gone on and brought a lot of negative attention to the school, and Bud Watts came in and starting with his knob class, that would be the class of 1993 that arrived the same time he did. He oversaw a school at a transition period, and actually I think right when the women came is when he left. But Bud Watts, 17th president of the Citadel class of 1958, the news coming out this week that he has passed away. We're going to talk about today in a great detail NIL. We've got audio from last week's press conference that Maurice Drayton had where he kind of set this thing up to talk about. And there are people that have been texting me about this subject and what does it mean at a school like the Citadel. So NIL discussion coming up in a big way on today's show about Citadel Sports, Citadel Gray Line. Andrew, I want to ask you, last week, as expected, the Citadel had a tough opponent in Western Carolina, and it was another blowout. The Citadel now 0-5 with its football season. but at least some positivity to talk about. And what a tribute, as you mentioned earlier, Stanley Myers passing away last week and coming out with a wishbone look for the first couple of plays in that opening drive.
Yeah, that was a tribute to Stanley Myers, Varney Lehman. I believe he's a redshirt sophomore quarterback. Came out, he wears number 16. They lined up in a wishbone. You're right, and there was kind of two quarterback keepers, back to back. And people who might not know, or I'm assuming if they watch the show, they probably do know. Stanley Myers on his first play from scrimmage when he took over as the starting quarterback at the Citadel. It's actually a game that I covered. Um, he went the wrong way on the snap. He was supposed to hand it off one way, and he went the wrong way, and it ended up being kind of a broken play and ended up in a 52 or 53-yard touchdown run for Stanley Myers' first play as a Citadel quarterback. And so Maurice Drayton, who was a classmate and a very close friend of Stanley's, he kind of did that as a tribute. And I thought it was only going to be for one play, but the first play worked so well, they lined it up again and pretty much did the same play back to back, and it ended up getting, I think, 23 yards total out of the two plays. So able to pick up a first down, early first down, kind of get some momentum. And honestly, the offense I thought played really well. I thought Pat Covington, the offensive coordinator, for the most part during the whole game, called a really good game. He mixed in some trick plays. He gave Western Carolina some different looks, some things that they hadn't seen, some new wrinkles in it. And you look at those first two drives that they had. Well, the second drive, obviously, penalties, but they looked pretty good. They looked like they were a team that offense had kind of found a rhythm, and they were able to move the ball, scored a touchdown on their first possession. Second drive they had the fake, not the fake play, but a trick play on pass back on their kickoff. And Landon Owens scores a touchdown. They call it back on a very, very questionable blindside block, in my opinion. And then, 3 plays later, Cooper Wallace scores, and there's another holding penalty, and then that kind of took the air out of it. But boy, the atmosphere for those first couple of drives for the Bulldogs at Johnson Hagelin was really good. The fans are really loud. They're really into the game, and yeah, we saw some good things out of the Bulldogs. Got off to a much better start, at least offensively, than they have in the first 4 games of the season.
Sellout crowd at JHS for Parents Weekend. Congratulations to the class of 2024, by the way, for picking up that band of gold. Unfortunately, it'll be a long time before Citadel picks up another championship ring, as 0-5 the record now after a 49-14 loss to Western Carolina. And I don't mean to pile on here, but guys, I was looking back, 2016 was the last true winning season for this football program, and with one more loss, we're absolutely guaranteed another losing season. Where's Pat Conroy when you need him? Speechless here. Okay.
Yeah. No, it's not looking good. I actually went back and looked and was trying to find if the Citadel had ever had a winless season, and to the best of my research, it looks like 1918 was the last time they did not win a game. I think that's the only season they did not win a game, but my research could be wrong. I tried to go through the media guide yesterday and look through that. So
look at you.
Yeah, I think they went 0-2-1 or 0-3-1 or something like that. So yeah, that was the last time, and hopefully that doesn't happen here. I still think they're moving in a better direction now, and Wofford and VMI, those are going to be the 2 games that I think they have the best chance to win. They're at home. They should be ready to play those games, and that's kind of an apples versus apples comparison between the programs.
Now, I do want to ask you about the quarterback position, because Varney was the starting quarterback with those couple of plays, and then you went to Underwood, but the transfer quarterback didn't play at all. What's going on with him?
Yeah, they say it's an undisclosed injury. I am just assuming here, so I could be wrong, but all the indications that I get is that he got a concussion against SC State, and he's still in kind of concussion protocol. So I think it's going to be another week or 2 before we see him back out on the field. Concussions are funny things, man. They can last for a really long time. Covering hockey as much as I have, I've seen guys who have a concussion who are out 3 or 4 months. And it's just going to be how quickly, if that's in fact what it is, Dustin Fletcher can kind of pass the concussion protocol and get back there on the field. But I think for the foreseeable future, we're going to see Grayson Underwood, and I think we're going to see Varney Lehman. I think he's kind of proven to the coaches that he deserves a chance to get out there and run some play. So it wouldn't just shock me to see him play a little bit as well this week.
And I have to ask you, Andrew, they actually proved that you can run a wishbone in 2023. And they were successful. Yeah. They had two successful runs there with that thing. So could we see that back into the playbook?
I don't think so. I don't think that's in Pat Covington's background as an offensive coordinator and a play caller. But at this point, nothing would surprise me. You know, I was able to talk very briefly this week with Raleigh Jackson, the defensive coordinator. And let me tell you what, there's nobody on the planet more frustrated than that guy is. And somebody pointed out to me before the South Carolina game, I think I started talking about this last week before the technical difficulties interrupted us, but I went and I charted plays where the Bulldogs could have, on defense, could have made a play to stop the opposition to either a no gain or a tackle for a loss. And I counted 7 of those plays against South Carolina State, and I counted 8 more against Western Carolina, where they had where the right play was called, and the guy just didn't make the guy was the Bulldog player was in perfect position to make a play behind the line of scrimmage or stop him for no gain, and somehow they missed the tackle and they get a positive yardage out of it. And so I think that's something that's really frustrating for Raleigh, because it seems like he's calling the right plays, he's putting the guys in the position to make the plays, and right now they're just not doing it. And Maurice Drayton is a lot like, because of his NFL background, he's not going to do a lot of live tackling drills during practice during the week. And a lot of people think that's the best way to obviously get better tackling. I kind of agree with that. But you also don't want to wear these kids down during the week and then have them not fresh on Saturday. But something's got to give, because 5 straight times the Citadel's opposition has been able to take the whatever opening kickoff or the second kickoff or the punt or whatever, however they got the ball, and they've scored on the first possession of the game. And that's got to end. The defense for the Citadel has got to get off to a better start.
Yep. Thomas, what were your thoughts on this game before we look ahead to Furman?
Well, like Andrew said, I think in the first quarter, John, it was exciting. We were competitive. You get 2 touchdowns called back. I know later in the game we fumbled as we're driving. But then it seems like Western Carolina woke up, took over the game. Like Andrew said, what's baffling is these scholarship athletes that can't seem to tackle anybody. That's been the story for 5 games, and that's what's very frustrating, I think. It's not the fact, more than being 0-5, it's how we've lost those games. Just not even competitive. So that's, I understand a new offense, but, this defense, I think we've got some experience with defense, and we should be seeing better results.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with Tommy more. And at first, and one of the reasons I brought up kind of the missed tackles and thing is because I brought up something to one of the coaches that I thought it might have been a scheme thing, because he went from 4 down linemen to 3 down linemen. They play a 4-2-5. They use Rhett Russell kind of as that bandit. I don't know what the term is for this defense, but he's kind of a hybrid linebacker / strong safety type. And I was like, well, is this the best scheme to make them successful? And I was told pretty frankly, in pretty frank language, I might add, that it wasn't the scheme, that they were in position to make plays and they just weren't making those plays. And they got to figure out a way to better communicate how to make those, how to make tackles and getting guys to the ground. And I see it all over college football. Actually, I see it in the NFL too. Tackling is a lost art in college football and in the NFL, because, I think that the physicality of the game, at least during the week of practice, is kind of going away, because you want those guys to be fresh and ready to go on Saturdays. And that's kind of the way, and it started the NFL, and I think it's trickled down into college football, that you just don't do a lot of live tackling during practice. That's just my opinion.
A very good opinion. Would you agree with that, Tommy?
Absolutely, Johnny.
All right. Hey, want to let everybody know here at Citadel Gray Line that you can reach out to us in various ways. And you also need to know that we are presented in part by IPS Packaging and Automation. Ladies and gentlemen, as you're cheering on those Citadel Bulldogs, we want to let you know about a true champion off the field, IPS Packaging and Automation. This family-owned and operated powerhouse has been a titan in the packaging industry since 1976. Clocking over 4 decades in the game, IPS Packaging and Automation stands tall as a leader in packaging products, automation equipment, and top-notch service. IPS Packaging and Automation plays a crucial role in the packaging process of countless businesses and manufacturing facilities across our United States. And here's a fun fact for you Bulldog fans. IPS Packaging and Automation has been a proud sponsor of Citadel Athletics for the last 10 years. Discover what they can do for you. Dive into their website at ipack.com, that's ipack.com, or ring them up at 800-277-7007, 800-277-70007. I may have put an extra zero in there, so let me say this again, 800-277-7007. IPS Packaging and Automation is a proud supporter of the mighty Citadel Bulldogs. Tommy, I'm going to get you to talk about Daybreak and Pedigo electric bikes as we continue on in a few minutes, so get ready for that. Also, if time permits, we'll have a little nice word or two about Franklin Plumbing and drain cleaning coming from you as well. But right now, the good word is going to be what the Citadel Bulldogs are going to do next as they head on up to the upstate for a road game against those awful Furman Paladins. And unfortunately, Furman's a darn good football team, Andrew, this year.
Yeah, they sure are ranked in the top 5 in really both the FCS polls. I think I still, I haven't seen Furman in person. I saw him play against South Carolina, obviously on TV, but I haven't seen them in person. Thus far, in my opinion, I think Chattanooga has been the best team that I've seen thus far. I thought Chattanooga was better than Western Carolina, just a little bit more of a complete team, in my opinion. Could be wrong about that. So I'm assuming here that Furman is going to be the best team in the Southern Conference. They're very balanced. They've got a lot of experience on both sides of the ball. I think I looked down, the 9 of their 11 starters on offense are either seniors or fifth-year seniors. That is just a very old veteran team, and I think that there was 7 out of 11 on defense that were either seniors or fifth-year seniors or kind of graduate-level guys. And really, Maurice Drayton talked about it. He goes, that when the Citadel has been really successful, they've been an older team. They've been kind of built the same way that Furman is now, and I think that's what Maurice Drayton is trying to do. Although if you look at the Citadel's roster, they've certainly got, like Tommy pointed out, they've got some guys who have played some football, older guys who have played some football. Now, Maurice Drayton will point out that the older guys haven't been on the field a ton throughout their career, so it's not like they have a lot of, they might be older, but they haven't had a ton of experience. I think that was what he was trying to point out to me. But yeah, 9 of the 11 on offense for Furman, really older guys. And I think I had a stat in the story yesterday or in Tuesday's paper that 17 out of the 22 at Furman starters have had more than 10 starts during their careers. So basically, they've been starting for an entire season. So this is a group that's a veteran group that knows each other, that can, knows where each other's going to be on the field, and that is so important when you're running, especially defensively, to me, a defensive scheme.
Yeah, and I'm not going to predict anything more about Furman because I didn't do too good in that game against those chickens in Columbia, did I, Tommy?
No, you didn't, Johnny.
Yeah, okay.
Dead wrong.
Yeah, dead wrong on the Paladins. But a rivalry game, I saw where the Post-Courier this week even brought that subject up about the old Citadel-Furman rivalry week going on this week. But got to beat those guys, got to beat them, and it can be done. The Citadel went up there not long ago and won in a rainstorm against the Purple Pukes. So it's a rivalry week, and maybe the stars will align in Green Vegas for Citadel sports. But if they don't, unfortunately, it'll drop Maurice Drayton's team to 0-6 and a guaranteed losing season, as, again, we have not had a winning season at South Carolina's Military College since that incredible 2016 SoCon title in Brent Thompson's first year as head coach. I didn't realize this, speaking of Coach Thompson, I didn't realize this until I was talking to a source, what he's doing these days. Andrew, can you fill us in if you know?
Yeah, he's at East Carolina, working with with Mike Houston again. Not 100% sure what his duties are. I want to just say he's like an offensive analyst. I believe that's what he's
I
doing.
don't believe he's running the triple option up there.
No, definitely not there. But yeah, he is working on Coach Houston's staff. And what's interesting is that when the time that he didn't have his contract renewed at the Citadel to kind of this point, he was, he had to do something to earn some money. So he was a caddy out at the Ocean Course on Kiowa and was doing. I think he told somebody he did like over 100 rounds of golf. And let me tell you what, carrying those bags around in this heat that we had this summer, I heard he lost a ton of weight too. He already lost a lot of weight going into at the beginning of last season too. So I heard he was like under 140 pounds when he was done with the summer. So
I mean, he looked like a little kid anyway. To
Yeah.
his credit, I'd love to look that young, and he is younger than me. But Brent Thompson, wish him well. I also heard recently from a source about another former head coach at El Cid, and that was Duger Balcom. Have you heard what he's doing?
I have not. No, I do. No. I'm afraid to say I do not know what he's doing now.
I think he is in the Charleston area, and I think he's potentially, you might run into him if you have to get a car, if you have to do one of those ride share type deals. So
I was gonna say my wife just bought me a car. So,
no. I think he might be doing a little
while.
moonlighting doing that. And hey, you can make a lot of money doing that stuff, so I don't blame him. But a great guy, and both of those guys, good guys. Just from the win standpoint, didn't work out in their favor. Speaking, while we have a second, with the hiring of Maurice Drayton, his old coach is still, as far as I know, hanging out in Columbia, South Carolina. That's Ellis Johnson. Do either one of you have any Ellis Johnson information?
I do not.
No, other than hearing him once a week on Phil Kornbluth's show.
Okay.
No, I don't know what Ellis is up to these days except hanging out on the farm.
Okay. All right. Well, I just knew that they have of course, Ellis Johnson brought Maurice Drayton to Hattiesburg during that infamous 0-12 season the Golden Eagles had at Southern Miss back in 2014-15 time period. And so, in fact, Maurice hung around Hattiesburg for a year after that, and that's where I got to know him in the Magnolia State. Pretty fun story. He went to the post office in Hattiesburg one day, and while waiting in line, a guy in front of him had a tattoo of Spike on his arm, and Maurice said, "Hey, Citadel?" And the guy was a grad living in the not so Citadel heavy Hattiesburg, Mississippi. So you never know with those tattoos what can end up happening. Let's go, before I get tattooed, to the text line real quick here. You can reach us here at Citadel Gray Line anytime on our Gray Line text line. 843-779-8496 is how you can text any time of day here and reach us. But texter says, "Hey John, why does the Gray Line cut off at 14 minutes? Thanks, Ross Brown." Well, Ross, I apologize. Last week we had a disaster from a production standpoint, and it was all on my end. And so that's why we kind of cut it off short. Plus, the news had just come out about the passage of Stanley Myers. So it was really a bad week to do a show, if you want to know the truth. But hopefully we're looking and sounding better. At least 2/3 of us are looking good. I know I'm not. But we appreciate you tuning in, Ross, and thank you for catching the Citadel Gray Line. Also, texter here doesn't tell us who they are, but they say, "We want more Citadel athletics info, please." So I'm going to forward that one on to Andrew. More Citadel athletics info.
Well, two things going on this week. One, the New York Knicks from the NBA are working out at McAllister Fieldhouse. I was able to go there yesterday and talk to a couple of those guys about, just kind of working out at the Citadel and being in Charleston. And this is the second year in a row that an NBA team has come to McAllister to work out in the preseason.
Who was it last year?
Last year was the Philadelphia 76ers and Doc Rivers. And what's interesting about this is that the New York Knicks have been in Charleston for preseason camps probably a dozen times from really about 1990 to the current date. They used to work out over at the College of Charleston back in the day, and those are Pat Riley teams. Patrick Ewing was on those teams. Larry Johnson, Doc Rivers was on those teams. The first ones that came there. So one of the reasons that Doc Rivers came back is because he remembered fondly walking around downtown Charleston and how pretty the city was and how it was a great place to kind of get away from the New York media and everything like that. And so the Knicks, though, their current coach was an assistant on those teams that used to come here, and so that's why they are back. The other thing that I noticed was how different the Citadel basketball team looks this year as opposed to last year. I was joking with Ed Conroy, the head basketball coach, about that. And he said, yeah, last year we looked like a boys cross country team, and this year we might actually look like a basketball team. He's got some big guys, some space eaters down low. They're not going to get pushed around like they did in the paint, at least last year, like they did. And I think they're going to be a much improved program from a year ago. He still has got some not issues, but some developing to do with some of his younger players. I think he's got 13 freshmen and sophomores on the team. No, that's too many. I think maybe it's 10 or 11, but he's got no juniors and no seniors. He's only got graduate guys and then freshmen and sophomores. So yeah, he's got a young team overall. But guys have come in that I think are going to be able to be productive. And then I did an interview with Allie Ruffin and the volleyball team, 16-0. They play Thursday night at UNCG, a match they should win, and that will set up a big showdown Saturday at McAllister Fieldhouse. I'm not sure what time it is, but they play against Wofford, and the Bulldogs, assuming again that they win on Thursday, they'll be undefeated, and that'll be a really big game. And they're off to the best 16-0, the best start in program history. So looking forward to seeing what they can do the rest of the way here.
Yeah. Well, again, a fantastic year for Citadel volleyball, and as I said, I think last week on the show, maybe because of our technical difficulties, it wasn't heard as much, Andrew. But I had a proud confession here that in the middle of a Citadel football game, I actually flipped over and watched volleyball because they were going on at the same time, and I watched the volleyball team. So, but nothing against the football team. It's not a bad run for that Citadel volleyball team for sure.
Oh, really good one.
Hey, speaking of Ed Conroy and his basketball team, they just put out the new jerseys that they've got, not the state, but the new threads that Under Armour has supplied them with for the new season, and I like the look. I was a little disappointed when I went back and looked at these models wearing these uniforms, and that's going to be the subject of what we're going to talk about here in a second. I'll tell you, not happy with the three choices, just based on their background, if you will. But the uniform sure looks nice, so that was good. And I had a question about McAllister Fieldhouse. So the Knicks are right there now. They can tuck away those main home bleachers, and they can go 3 basketball courts wide. Is that right?
That is correct. That is the way that the court was set up yesterday when I was at practice.
And that's safe. I mean, that area underneath the main court doesn't have splinters and stuff like that.
It didn't appear to, although when the bleachers are pushed back like they are, this is kind of not a funny story, and I can't remember exactly which player it was, but the first year Pat Dennis was the head coach. It was at night, and one of the players was up on the second floor of McAllister Fieldhouse, didn't know that the bleachers had been pushed back, and basically stepped off the bleachers and fell, 15 feet onto the floor, and ended up breaking his leg or breaking his ankle or something like that. I can't remember what it was, but he was I remember that all the lights being out, and the story was passed on to me secondhand, and he just stepped off like he thought they were bleachers there, and there weren't because he couldn't see. So yeah, but yes, they pushed them back, and they have 3 courts there. And again, I think that's one reason that NBA teams kind of prefer the Citadel over the College of Charleston, because if you're going to work out in different places at the College of Charleston, it's going to be in different rooms, and at the Citadel, it's all one big room. I like McAllister Fieldhouse and the layout of it personally.
Okay. Now, a source told me recently, Andrew, they didn't even have enough basketball goals in McAllister. I guess that's been remedied thanks to the New York Knicks.
Well, I'm not aware of that. I didn't hear about that. They look like they had all six of them yesterday. So
Okay.
if they have some replacements or something like that, I'm not aware of that.
All right. Well, we're glad. Hopefully, we won't need two, but two whenever the season arrives here pretty darn soon. But we got plenty of basketball talk. Tommy, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit, if you can, about Franklin Plumbing and Drain Cleaning.
Yeah, Josh. So Franklin Plumbing and Drain Cleaning here in the middle of South Carolina. Give my buddy Josh Daniels, Class 94, a call if you have any plumbing emergencies or drain cleaning needs. I have been working with Franklin for, goodness, 10, 15 years now. Always provide excellent service. And so, yeah, good people over there and well worth a phone call.
All right. What is that phone number? Do you have that website pulled up?
Yeah, that's 803-799-2222. I've got it in my memory bank because I've called Hope over at Franklin Plumbing and Drain Cleaning several times over the years.
Have you really? And they do a jam up job, eh?
They do, absolutely.
You have you really had a major problem they had to come solve?
Oh, yes, sir. Including when we were adding an addition onto our house and the builder decided to crush the existing main sewer line. Josh's folks were there within the hour.
That's pretty good. And more importantly, I like the way you just said "sir" to me.
Don't get used to it, John.
All right, Franklin Plumbing and Drain Cleaning in the Columbia SC area. Going to tell you about Daybreak as well as Pettigo before we get out of here today. But guys, if you don't mind, we threatened to talk about this subject last week and then it just didn't work out. But today, as we wrap up here on Gray Line for this week, I want to bring up the subject of name, image, and likeness. And that is an issue going on throughout all of college sports, not just literally, not just at the big schools. It's going on at small schools. It's going on in different sports. I've got a really good source, and a source told me that a South Carolina high school student was just added to the University of Alabama golf team and got about a $100,000 NIL deal to go play college golf at the University of Alabama. Roll Tide. Pretty good money for a college golfer, and that's golf. I can't imagine what some of these football players are getting. I'm hearing $9 million in the case of that Arizona State quarterback. This is a lot of money. This is changing the game. You got the transfer portal going on too. What does this mean at the Citadel? Well, let's go back to the press conference from last week. Maurice Drayton, head football coach of the Citadel, got asked an NIL-related question, and he responded. And let's hear what he said, and maybe Andrew and Tommy can help us decipher what head coach Maurice Drayton was kind of hinting at in this press conference.
There are NCAA rules and how much I can talk about recruiting, but I can tell you recruiting is not an issue. We have top tier young men who want to be a part of our program. They just have to go through the process, and we'll see how it works out in the end. We know that this recruiting thing, and it's you're one day you're hot, the next day you're not. NIL is going to play into a lot of it going forward because we are being courted, so to speak. We are being courted. It's not necessarily we are courting them with some top tier talent that, quite frankly, we haven't seen in these gates in a long time.
Andrew, I want to ask your thoughts about what brought that question about and what you think of Coach Drayton's response.
Well, I think one thing that we know about Maurice Drayton is that he is an excellent recruiter. I mean, he's the guy that got Andre Roberts to come to the Citadel and play. So, I mean, he is a guy that can go out there. I mean, you look at him, you talk to him, you just know he's going to go into somebody's living room, a family's living room, and it's just going to be hard to say no to him. I mean, he's such a positive guy, and he's he's a good salesman. I'll give him that as well. And I think that's sometimes what you have to be a really good recruiter. and he wants to do it the right way, and he wants only what's best for the student athletes. And again, that's very genuine. I think that comes out when you meet him as well. I do know and have heard from a couple of different people that yes, there are some uh, prospects that are coming in that maybe in the past that are coming to visit the Citadel, and that maybe in the past that they would have trouble even getting on campus, but now those guys are coming on campus, and I think part of that is a trickle down effect from the transfer portal, because more and more high school kids are realizing that even if you sign with whatever program that you're going to sign with, that doesn't stop the coach from bringing in a transfer from another college to come in and play the same position that you're playing. So the coach's hope is that that transfer guy can help them immediately, and in the meantime, they're going to develop you as a guy that they hope can fill into that slot later on into the next year, 2 years, 3 years down the road, and that's what they're hoping. And I think a lot of high school recruits are getting a little bit tired of that. They want to know where they're going to be on the depth chart when they go in there their freshman year. I think one of the things that the Citadel has done this year, they've played a lot of redshirt freshmen and true freshmen to kind of develop those guys, because the best way to develop them, people think practice, no, it's to get them on that game field and get them in game time experiences. So there have been some guys that I've been told, and a couple guys in particular. One guy could be actually a graduate transfer coming in. If he comes in, he could be a game changer for the program. Anyway, so and I think part of the attraction to the Citadel is the Citadel network and how you guys take care of each other and how important that ring is. And I think that is resonating with recruits. But along with that is this NIL, name, image, and likeness, and the connections that the Brigadier Foundation, the people within that business community have with the athletic program. I think is a huge selling point, and I think Maurice Drayton is taking advantage of that. He talks about recruiting the guy for 40 years. That means where they're going to be after they graduate from the Citadel for 40 years. You're setting them up for life, right? And what I think Maurice wants to tap into is like, okay, let's set them up for life, but also we can help them out now too. And I think that comes into the cost of attendance, which was a major speed bump for this coaching staff and trying to bring in some of these transfers and giving them an opportunity to afford a place downtown or close to the campus, and that just they weren't able to do it. And I think that's one of the issues that the Citadel is having now, but I think it's being addressed by some of the alumni and some of the people within the athletic department.
Well, Mr. NIL himself, that would be Coach Deion Sanders, tells his own team that 85% of them are not going to have a professional football life beyond Boulder, Colorado. So I would think that number might be a little higher in Charleston, South Carolina. So knowing that, using the percentiles in your decision making, I think the Citadel and its network, like you said, would certainly be an attraction to some people. But you're talking graduate transfers coming in, and that's just something that I don't think is a good idea. In fact, I've even heard Maurice Drayton talk about and may have said it in this same press conference, how the Citadel in its best years was powered by those guys who had been in the program and were entering their fourth or fifth season on that football roster.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. When the Citadel has been at their best, they have had older teams. I remember the team that I covered or helped cover with '92. I can't remember the exact number of fifth-year seniors and true seniors that were on that team, but it was a ton of them. And I think that's when the Citadel has been at their best. And if you look at Furman and how they've done it, they don't have a ton of transfers. I think they only have 11, including their quarterback, who came from Presbyterian, who's actually turned out to be a really good player for them. But they don't have a ton of transfers. And they have basically recruited and developed their talent, and then they've kind of filled in some gaps where they have needed them with graduate transfers and just other transfers. I disagree with you a little bit, John. I think as long as there is a the complementary number of transfers, grad transfers, I think that's okay. And I don't think that they take away from the mission of what the Citadel is on and off the field. And I think they're going to help your football program and help your athletic program.
Well, I absolutely disagree with you, sir. And you know what? I'm not the coach. I don't run the school, so my opinion doesn't really matter. But it does matter from a fan support. I don't want to go out and pull for a Citadel sports team that's 90% transfers, and I don't know if it'll ever get to be that high. But we might as well be Texas A&M if that ever happens. So it's an issue that goes beyond even the athletics when it comes to some of this transfer stuff. We've got Thomas and I can probably weigh on this just because we went through there. We got an issue, in my opinion, totally off the athletic fields of brand identity to the Citadel, of the school being a school best known for its Corps of Cadets, but people go to school there and they don't ever wear a uniform. They're part of the graduate school. They're part of what was called the evening college. And there is a clear separation between that and those who put on a uniform and have to march around for a couple of years. And that, to me, is totally wrong. I understand the importance. I've been told the Citadel would not even exist now if not for that evening college graduate situation. But you'd think there has to be some kind of happy medium of which you can still have that, but it not necessarily even have the name Citadel. Tommy, am I crazy? Am I just a curmudgeon?
Well, you are a curmudgeon, John. I mean, the evening graduate school has been around for 50 plus years, and it is a vital source of funding for the college. However, I believe the Citadel has been trying to address those concerns in the most recent marketing to say, hey, the heart and soul of the Citadel will always be the Corps Cadets. You know, for those that are concerned that someday we're going to become a Norwich or we're going to become a Virginia Tech or a Texas A&M. You know, at one point in time, I think you and I talked about this previously, there was a proposal to merge MUSC, College of Charleston, and Citadel, which is absurd. Okay, I understand that from a fiscal standpoint, but that's never going to happen. Okay, so we're not going to become A&M. We're not going to become Norwich. And also, I do agree with you on the transfers. Nobody, cadets or alumni, want to go sit in the stands at Johnson Haygood and see a team full of transfers and never wore the uniform. I think the reality is we're going to move forward as we always have with mostly cadets and with select transfers. I don't ever see us get to the point where we have a very large percentage of transfers. Now, I say that, and I hear through the grapevine that the baseball team has maybe a third or even higher of the team is transfers, and that is just not okay. You know, winning at all costs, I don't agree with that. The guys that play on the baseball team, I don't understand how you can have any type of camaraderie or cohesion in the locker room if you've got, you know, let's say 30% of the team living off campus, right? Totally different lifestyle. So what I would say is, and I expect better from our head baseball coach who played there as a cadet. I understand what the pressures are like to win, but at the same time, we need to win in the right way. So
yeah. And I referenced earlier that basketball image that was put out this week of the great uniforms. All three of those players, number 2, number 4, and number 42, are transfer students. None of them have been a cadet. And that's I didn't like that. Again, the curmudgeon in me, Andrew. I know they may be good basketball players, but come on, one of them. Give me a cadet in there somewhere.
Both, yeah. Well, so you had issues with veterans then that used to play for the Citadel?
No, I don't. I don't. In fact, those were some great players like Patrick Elmore was a wonderful veteran student who actually had been a cadet and then went into the Army. I have no problem with veteran students. It's just those who have zero military regimen, if you will, that come in and go to that evening college. And look, there may be a rule that if you have a student in that graduate school, they are absolutely allowed to play. I don't know of such a rule, but they're very well made. And so people like me complaining about it makes no difference, okay? But I still think it is it's not just me as a grad mad about it. I am partially mad because I feel like there's got to be some kids who fought hard to get playing time, who've gone through the system, literally the fourth class system, and somebody comes in out of nowhere and starts taking the snaps or dribbling the ball, and they don't get to play, but they've had to go through all this cadet stuff. To me, I know life's not fair, but that certainly is not fair in my opinion.
Well, John, I think it's one thing to have that personal opinion. You and I happen to share that opinion. We also have to look at our athletic department, the year 2023, the current environment. You know, the Citadel's different in the year 2023 than it was in 1993 when we were there. You know, so the change is constant. But I think we also need to hold the athletic department accountable so we don't go too far the other way, right? We cannot have athletic teams full of mostly transfers.
Yeah,
Can I make a couple of points here?
absolutely.
I'm going to make 3 points. One, as the father of a daughter who's going to your graduate school currently, and is going to work, and is going to get her master's degree in history, actually from the College of Charles. It's a joint degree from the College of the Citadel, and who has enjoyed her time at the Citadel, I might add. Yeah, I think and I think Tommy pointed out the graduate program has been around forever. And I remember when Shannon Faulkner was going there was a statistic going around that there were actually more women than men going to the Citadel because of those graduate master's programs. So they were already kind of there was already co-education going on there. And one of the interesting things that a very good friend of mine now, whose name is escaping me, I hate getting old, but he played basketball in the late 80s. He played with Ed Conroy. Oh God, I can't remember. Craig Burgess. I don't know if you guys know who Craig Burgess is. Craig Burgess pointed out to me, he's from Lake City, that he thinks that the state should be invested in having single sex education within South Carolina. That it's in the state's interest to have an all women's school and to have an all men's school. And the points he made, I had to agree. They were, as progressive as I am, I couldn't argue with him because he made valid points about how separating the sexes during education actually is good for both groups. So that's point number one.
We're going to talk about that. I'm all for that. Absolutely, sign me up.
That's point number one. Two, I think the alumni at the Citadel has to make a decision. Are you going to, and all this is going to shuffle out with what happens with college football at the highest level, with the Power 5 conferences. Because I think eventually what's going to happen in the next 5 years or 10 years at the outside is that NCAA football is just going to break off those big Power 5 teams. They're going to be about 60, 64 of them, 60, 65 of them are going to break off, and they're just going to become separate from the NCAA. And then I think you'll see the conferences come back together and be more regional for basketball, the Olympic sports, and so on and so forth. So while that is shaking out, I think the Citadel has to make up their mind and where the Citadel is going to fall into that hierarchy of kind of football, Power 5, Group of 5, and then the FCS, right? And where does the Citadel want to be? And if they're going to go with what you guys want to do, hey, we're only going to have cadets on these athletic teams, then I think there has to be a discussion. Well, maybe we should drop down to Division II because you're not going to be able to compete at the FCS level just using guys that come through the Corps of Cadets. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't but it's got to be one way or the other. You either got to let some of the transfers in and kind of relax some of those restrictions. But I don't ever see the Citadel having more transfers than Corps of Cadets players in any of their programs. I don't see that day ever happening, in my opinion. But I think there has to be kind of a complementary between, the Corps of Cadets and then having transfers come in. That's just my opinion. If you want to be successful and compete at the level that you're currently competing at. Again.
So Andrew, let me clarify something.
Yeah.
I have no problem. I have no issue with someone that has an extra year of eligibility coming into the graduate school, even if they were never a cadet,
right,
and playing on an athletic team. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
Okay, but they need to represent our school well. They need to have a good haircut. They need to shave. They need to look like a cadet, in my opinion. Okay, and that may be asking a lot, but my point is, if they are paying money just like you are for your daughter to get a degree, I think that's an awesome thing.
Yeah.
They should be eligible to play, and I don't think most alumni have a problem with that.
Right.
I think the concern comes in, where I'm concerned is that what you just said, if we decide we want to be competitive at the D1 level, right? Well, what percentage of guys, high school guys, are we going to go after that are going to be cadet versus non-cadet? That's the real answer there.
Yeah, totally agree with you on that one. And I look at Dustin Fletcher as an example of that. If you notice, I don't know if you saw him when he first came onto campus. His hair was a little bit longer, and he saw the lay of the land, and he cut his hair, and he kind of cleaned himself up, as you would say.
Yeah.
And I think and from what I'm told, he did that on his own accord because he respects what the Corps Cadet is, and what the Corps Cadets are, and what they represent. And I think as long as you get guys like that, I think you're going to be fine. But yeah, I agree that you come here for a reason, just like the Yankees. The Yankees, they don't want any beards and they don't want super long hair. So that's the code that they have been, that has been the tradition for them, and I think that can continue at the Citadel. So yeah, you're right. You got to get the guys to respect those guys. And even last year when I talked to some of the kids that Rhett Russell was a guy, and he understood what that meant, and I think as long as you get guys like that, you're going to be fine. I mean,
we have a question that has come in specifically about NIL. I want to get to that question as we're going to be wrapping up the show. But Tommy, if you don't mind, tell me a little bit about Coker Day and what he's got going on in South Carolina.
Okay, sorry, John, you caught me off guard there because you started talking about NIL. But Coker owns two businesses here in South Carolina. One, Daybreak Adult Care Services. The slogan on their website is "There's no place like home." They provide personal in-home care in the privacy and security of your own home. They'll help make aging in place possible with a wide variety of in-home care services. So that's my buddy, my classmate, Coker Day, and also.
Let me put you on hold for just a second. This is a surprise, and we got to give Andrew Miller the credit for this. Daybreak Care is presenting this week's Knob Knowledge. And we're going to ask a question, and we're going to ask a question, and we want you to text your answer to us if you know this, 843-779-8496. And because we were referencing a member of the old Corps, and that would be Craig Burgess, Citadel class of 1987, who played basketball for Les Robinson and then Randy Nesbitt back in the 1980s. I want to have you all, if you know, text me what this Citadel basketball player and alum, what he's doing now professionally. If you can tell me what Craig Burgess, class of 87, is doing now, maybe he's in the NBA, text me here, and we'll give you something nice. 843-779-8496. That is our Knob Knowledge question of this week, presented by Daybreak Adult Care Services. Now, back to Coker Day's lineup of companies.
Yes, Coker's other company, Pedigo Electric Bikes. They have two locations, one in Aiken, one in Soda City, which is actually just across the river in West Columbia. It's a locally owned store. They say you'll be treated like family, and I was treated like family when my wife and I went and rented some electric bikes for an afternoon. They are the region's foremost electric bike experts. They put their heart into helping you find the perfect electric bike and get the most out of it for many years to come. So go see Coker in Soda City or in Aiken.
Pedigo, whose national spokesperson is one William Shatner. So if William Shatner can ride and support Pedigo, then I think we all can here. So as we start wrapping things up, I did have a text come in. Either one of you two gentlemen can take your stab at this one. Question comes in at 843-779-8496. Question about NIL. Who is going to fund it at the Citadel, and how much are we talking about?
Well, go ahead,
I say
Andrew.
Tommy is going to fund it, and we'll just empty out his bank account.
Well, I think what that person is referring to more is a collective, and when there's a collective, then that's a different animal altogether. That's where you just pile in a bunch of cash together, and then you literally just pay the athletes. That's what a collective. NIL is local businesses, local people, not necessarily connected to the Citadel athletic department, but going out and representing these businesses. Hopefully, hopefully they're local or local wherever the kid is from, and and so that business pays the kid money. So it's kind of like tipping in when you're at a restaurant. The restaurant's not paying them, not paying for the tip. It's the customer who's doing it. So that's what NIL more is like. And there are guys out there who are agents who I know who have deals with Citadel athletes right now with NIL stuff. And I'm getting ready to, in the next couple of weeks, to write kind of a little bit of a story about that and about how mid majors are competing. But basically, that's what a name, image, and likeness is. It's the ability for the kids, the athletes, to go out and say, I'm going to do an autograph session, and they show up and they get a certain amount of money just to make an appearance there. And that's really a lot about what NIL is.
Andrew, are you aware of anybody on a Citadel sports team that currently has an NIL deal?
Was that to me or Tom?
Either one of you. I was asking you because you probably know about 1% more than Tommy.
Yes, I do.
You do have 1% more knowledge, or you know who has got an NIL deal?
I do know who has NIL deals, yes.
Well, can you give me an example?
I cannot. Not right now.
Because you don't know, or that it hadn't happened, or what?
Well, that I don't want to get scooped by another media outlet. How about that?
Oh, okay. Sounds like you're working on a story.
Yes.
Indeed. Yes.
Okay, all right. Well, a lot of these times, I didn't think it was a big trade secret here. A lot of the times this stuff's put out on social media big time. So,
and we're not talking, a lot of money here. We're talking about just, spending money. That's what I would call it. It's not like they're super not like Spencer Rattler and what he's got going on up in South Carolina, who, in my opinion, will probably have to take a pay cut to go to the NFL next year if he ends up going out. So, yeah.
Wow. Well, a question about this that me being the curmudgeon, I'll take that honor, I guess, is do you, Andrew, think that it's possible that conferences, in this case conferences like the Southern Conference, legally could come out and say, you know what, we're just not at a level to compete with the real big boys of football. So at least here in this conference, all of our institutions have come up with this plan, and we're just not going to have NIL in the Southern Conference. Is that even feasible?
No, because that would be against the law.
Damn you. Well, at the Citadel, you may not know this, but the Citadel, at least in the days of Tommy, you couldn't have a job as a cadet. It was not allowed.
That's correct. And John, can we start calling NIL by its correct name? It's pay to play. That's a negative connotation, but it's exactly what it is. Lane Kiffin was right. No matter what level it's at, Southeastern Conference versus Southern Conference, right? So we can talk all we want about some kid's name, image, and likeness and how nice that is, and it's good for them. I'm not, against, them making money off of that, but it really is pay to play.
But, we have a very, look, our pool of people who can give is pretty small. We can't even build the east side of our stadium. It's taken over 5 years. Seriously. And
so the East Stands need an NIL deal.
Maybe so. I'm laughing. I wish I had millions and millions of dollars I could give to the school. I really do, but I don't. Unfortunately, I guess the Citadel is not the kind of school you go to and it produces 100 millionaires in every class. Unfortunately, that evidently must be the case. But we can't even build what probably is only about a $10 million project. You're the engineer. What does that cost over there? $10 million for that thing?
No, it's more than that.
Is it?
No, the project over what they're going to do, I think it was $4.5 million. I think I did write a story about that earlier in the year.
That must be a very scaled down version then.
Yeah.
If it's only $4.5 million.
$4.5 million. Some schools raise that in a weekend. SMU did it. They raised $10 million in a week.
How big is SMU versus the Citadel? Come on.
But we've never had the death penalty. But anyway, this is a problem going on in all sports. I realize that. It's happening at all schools, all levels of schools. It's even happening within each school in the different athletic departments. Heck, it's a problem even on the teams. It's not fair that Spencer Rattler gets Tommy Scruggs money for whatever he's doing in Columbia, but a guy that probably snaps him the ball every play and has to sit there and take the hits may not even have an NIL deal at all. That's not right, Andrew.
Well, like you said, John, life's not fair.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
I'm going to
and
make it fair.
I'm going to shock you with another kind of statistic. Most uh, football programs, first of all, there's only about 60 to 65 schools that make money. Their athletic department makes money, right? And that's it. And every other school, so the other 800 NCAA schools at all the levels, they don't make money. It's not a they're always in the red, and they have to have student fees to support their athletic program. So when people talk about pay to play and all this other stuff, it's only at really at the elite level where they're making these millions, and the programs I'm talking about now are making millions and millions and millions of dollars. There was a recent study, and I think there were less than 100 basketball programs at the NCAA Division I level that were actually making money on their own, that they weren't relying on student fees to support their athletic department. So one thing we're only talking about those elite programs, the South Carolinas, the Clemsons, the Alabamas, all those in the Power Five conferences. Yes, they can make money without student fees, but everybody else, they need student fees to support their athletic department. So we're only talking about a few programs that make all this money, and then everybody else needs help. And that's why I believe that football is just going to break off, because even basketball programs at the elite level are not making a lot of money.
Man, we've just brought all kinds of great news to everybody here on Citadel Gray Line today. Again, this is a developing issue. It's going to be developing, and it's going to affect schools everywhere. But in this case, South Carolina's military college, it's a problem that somebody's going to have to figure out. We'll see what it is. And no matter what, Tommy Scruggs will be right there in the Johnson Haygood stands rooting them on, even if it's 100%.
At least not these stands, though.
Not the East stand, that's right. Guys, anything else before we say goodbye for the week?
I think that's it.
All right, big show today. Appreciate everybody tuning in, and we'll be back here next week. The game at Furman starts at 2 o'clock, and we'll be back on next week's Citadel Gray Line to recap that game and get you ready for the Military Classic of the South as those Keydets come down from Lexington, the one in Virginia that is, for a 1 o'clock game at Johnson Haygood Stadium on October 14th. Until we see y'all back here next week, we appreciate all of you who watch Citadel Gray Line. We'll see you back here next week. Thank you.